So a lot to get to today, and it is a Big 12 Whip Around Monday, so let's get into it. We always take some time, put a minute on the clock, and break down all of the games within a minute that we saw this weekend. So let's welcome in our producer, T-Chains, Taman Turner. Taman, what do you have for us today?
Yo. All right, starting off, we have Oklahoma State at Utah.
All right, this is a big win for Oklahoma State because it was their first road win in quite some time in the Big 12. A 15-game losing streak on the road spanning 2 years. It was the first time Steve Lutz has won a road game at Oklahoma State in the Big 12. They broke away from the Utes in the final 4 minutes of this contest. Parsifala, who had a rough offensive night, snapped a three-pointer from the top of the key to give the Cowboys 69-62 lead with 3:23 left. And that started a run that saw Oklahoma State score 15 of the game's final 22 points. So they closed late in this one in Salt Lake.
Yeah, and that three was really the turning point in the dagger because Fala's only made 7 all year, but he shoots around 50% from three. He just doesn't take a lot. He was wide open. A massive win for Oklahoma State to keep their NCAA tournament hopes alive. Any win in the Big 12 is a good road win, especially this weekend where every single arena in the Big 12, even the games yesterday, was pretty much packed, and Utah was no exception. Utah led by 3 with about 8 minutes to go before Oklahoma State went on an 8-0 run that included that 3, and that was the difference. And Anthony Roy, that guy can score 26 points.
TCU at Colorado.
All right, TCU at Colorado. This was a really tough loss for TCU or a really good win for Colorado. I guess it depends on which vantage point. But, I mean, Colorado really showed up, and it felt like TCU did not. After back-to-back buckets by David Punch, Colorado was just up 22-21 with 9:09 remaining in the first half, and then the Horned Frogs went nearly 8 minutes without a point. It was a lack of execution, turnovers that plagued TCU as Colorado uses three-point shooting to take complete control of the game.
Yeah, this felt like another elimination game for the NCAA tournament, and for TCU to be 3-6 and have some of those non-conference losses hanging over their head, they have a lot of ground now to make up. In Colorado, snaps a 6-game losing streak. I think Colorado is a year away. They looked really good yesterday with that win, but like you look at their impact players in this game, they're all underclassmen, freshmen or sophomores, and Tad Boyle's players don't leave. They develop. And they've got 3 or 4 pros on this team, but they're 2 years away from being that. But they are much improved from what they were last year, and this was another step.
Yeah, Sebastian Rancic was 17. Isaiah Johnson was 16, to your point.
And that's a sophomore and a freshman.
Yep.
All right, guys, next one is Baylor at West Virginia.
All right, Baylor snapped a 4-game skid and got a much-needed win on the road. West Virginia, meanwhile, took its first home loss of the season. West Virginia's offense shot just 36%, plus went 7+ minutes in this game without scoring. So that was, a huge part of the outcome here.
And I still keep my eye on Baylor because they have 2 guys that are expected to be first-round NBA draft picks, one that's probably a lottery pick. And I know they're 2-7 in Big 12 play, but like of these teams in the bottom half of the league that could get hot, Baylor's my number 1 candidate.
Yeah.
They snap a 16-game West Virginia home winning streak with that win. Now, they led 15-5. They were really aggressive and just looked dialed in. And Cameron Carr was unselfish. He scored 16 points, very efficient. Also had 12 rebounds. Like, they're one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. They just struggled against really good point guards. But this was a major win for Baylor to steal one on the road.
All right, guys, the Territorial Cup, Arizona at Arizona State.
Yeah, so of note here, James, Kansas in 96-97 started 22-0. They lost to Missouri. Arizona ended their season that year in the NCAA tournament, one of the most famed Kansas teams of all time. I'm sure you remember that team. So 22-0 is the longest stretch to start a season ever in Big 12 history. Arizona matches that with their 22nd straight win to start this season against Arizona State at the Territorial Cup. This game was a lot closer than expected, but Arizona pulled away late. I thought, Tobe Awaka may not be the best player on this team, but he's the spark plug. And he had 2 offensive rebounds in the second half of this game that really sparked the run for Arizona. Jaden Bradley was not great, but hit 2 big shots down the stretch. Like, that's what they do. They just put teams away, and that's what they did against Arizona State in Tempe.
Yeah, this game was really never competitive. I was at a shoot-around Saturday afternoon, and I'm listening to a couple of assistant coaches and my analysts talk about Michigan, because Dusty May was an assistant at Louisiana Tech many, many years ago, and they're rattling off all the teams that could beat Michigan and win the national championship. And nobody said Arizona. And I'm just sitting there, I'm thinking, man, like, people outside the Big 12
No idea.
still don't understand how dominant this basketball team is at 22-0.
All right, I'm curious to get James' thoughts. Iowa State at Kansas State.
I don't have any thoughts, Taman. This game didn't exist. It was not played.
I think Iowa State just scored again. 95-61, and James, it wasn't even that close.
No, it wasn't. It was the worst home loss for K-State in over 3 decades. K-State's now 1-8 in Big 12 play. Iowa State had a 25-4 run and just manhandled Kansas State on both ends of the floor. And the sad part is Kansas State had maybe their best crowd of the year. Like, Bramlage Coliseum was nearly sold out for a basketball team that's barely playing 500, and Iowa State whooped them. They led 50-21 at halftime, and 2 programs headed in opposite directions. And It says a lot about the physicality that you have to have in this league, not just on the perimeter, but also in terms of rebounding the basketball, scoring at the rim. Joshua Jefferson led a really balanced attack for Iowa State. Everybody scored. Everybody filled up the stat sheet. It was flawless basketball from the Clones.
Yeah, 28 assists on 33 made baskets for Iowa State. So I think this win said a lot more about Iowa State than it did about K-State.
All right, next one, guys. Cincinnati at Houston.
This one was one of the few games that was yesterday, including Iowa State and Kansas State and Houston and Cincinnati. 38 straight wins for Houston over unranked opponents. Just a remarkable number for that basketball team, James.
Yeah, they led after a 16-5 run over a stretch of about 6 or 7 minutes. They took control at that point. They were up 32-18 and really never looked back. They outscored Cincinnati then by 26 in the second half. And the fact that Houston is 19-2 and not even in the conversation for a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament says a lot about how top-heavy college basketball is. But if you're a 1, good luck playing Houston as a 2 or a 3 in your region.
If you're a 1 with Houston as your 2.
Right?
Sorry.
But I think
that's another team that can beat Michigan, by the way.
Totally.
I think the Big 12 has 2 or 3 at least.
That thought that Houston could be a 2 or 3 seed, to me, basically says that the Elite Eight of this year's tournament will be Final Four caliber teams and Final Four caliber games because college basketball is that top heavy.
All right, this was a fun one. Texas Tech at UCF.
Yeah, UCF, welcome to the NCAA tournament, right? Solidifying their spot with another quad 1 win here, this time over a Texas Tech team that had been surging. Look, Orlando's a tough place to win. Kansas found that out. Texas Tech found that out. Themis Folks 21-7. UCF was plus 12 on the boards and then 13-6 in the turnover. That was the difference here, was the second chance points and the points off turnovers. UCF turned 13 offensive rebounds into 21 second chance points and lived in the paint, which not something you want to do against, not something you want to do if you're Texas Tech.
Yeah, massive win for UCF, and it says a lot about Johnny Dawkins and his ability as a coach. This is a guy who's been there for about a decade and has had moderate success, but, not high-level success. And that's very distracting.
Sorry, it's just...
it's an example of a coach that...
At two, Brutti?
That if you give them the right resources, they can be successful. Like, there are so many great coaches in college basketball that maybe don't have the resources to build the type of roster that they want. And now that he does, look at what's happening. 17-4. How about that?
I never want this segment to end because this music is so intense. It just makes me feel like I'm watching the movie where Julius C is just about to get stabbed.
Totally. This is like Gladiator 300 vibes all day.
Like somebody very big is about to die. Very important.
All right, our final game, which was the Big 12 game of the week on TuneIn, BYU at Kansas. All right, can't wait to hear your thoughts.
Wow. There's a lot to get to and unpack with this game. This was a tale of two halves. Kansas was dominant the first half. Darren Peterson looked every bit the number 1 pick that he's going to be. He was phenomenal. And then he basically didn't play the second half. We've seen this movie before. Kansas blows a lead. Richie Saunders, 24 second-half points. He scored over 30. This was the Richie Saunders game, and a game that all the scouts were there to see DeBonsa and Peterson. It was Richie Saunders that exploded, but Kansas did enough down the stretch. Bryson Tiller, 23 and 7. This was his best game. And Melvin Council and Trey White have been so huge for Kansas this year, and they closed this one out, but it got close after having a 25-point lead in the first half, James.
I mean, Darren Peterson, when healthy, is him, and he's getting better when he's out on the floor. And that was my main takeaway, is that Kansas is improving without him on the floor, and they are improving with him on the floor. And both things can be true, and that's what we're seeing from Kansas. Also, for BYU, this was the second game in a row against a really high-quality physical team where they dug themselves a massive hole against Arizona and Kansas. Lost both those games and rallied to make it close. But why can't they play with that urgency in the final 5-6 minutes of a game for the full 40? I think that's the next step for BYU.
Here's a text I got from James Westling at 3:50 on Saturday night in the middle of the first half. All in caps, by the way. Look at me. I have the best player in the nation, and he's healthy, and we might win the national championship now. I had blah, 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 blah. That's a bunch
a lot of letters.
I'm Kansas.
Kansas looked really good in that first half.
The first half was, incredible. The second, I was thinking of so many different snarky responses to you in the second half of that game.
Well, I had to turn it off because I had to attend a shoot-around, so I thought the game was over at halftime. Apparently it was not.
So did Darren Peterson.
So did Darren Peterson.
Yeah.
And a quick turnaround. I mean, he's not on the availability report, but Kansas plays tonight against Texas Tech. Will it be the same story? I think against Texas Tech in Lubbock, you need him in the second half. Okay, you maybe didn't need him against BYU, but they will tonight.
Yeah, let's get into this Darren Peterson saga, shall we? What to make of it and all that jazz. We'll hear what Bill Self had to say about the latest bout for Darren Peterson and cramps, plus a ton of drama playing out with the deputy athletic director with Kansas saying something to him mid-game, also his agent. There's a lot of drama going on around this program right now. Michael Swain, who covers Kansas for 24/7, will join us coming up in about 20 minutes. But on the way next, the Darren Peterson saga and what it means. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo on a Modelo Monday here on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios.